We are joined now by two Mississippi police chiefs. Lee Vance is chief of the Jackson Police Department, the largest police department in the state of Mississippi. Joey East is chief of the Oxford Police Department. He also serves as president of the Mississippi Chiefs of Police Association. Chiefs, thank you both for being with us on At Issue. Let me start with you, Chief Vance. Right. There have been some highly publicized events, shootings involving police officers elsewhere in the country that have gotten a lot of publicity over the last year or two. How have those incidents affected perception of your department and your officers and you?
It's created a challenge for us to make sure that the citizens of this city know that we come from a community-oriented policing perspective. And basically what that means is that we want to work with the public to make Jackson safe. Our officers are going to participate in outreach programs. We're going to be professional and respectful, and we're going to enforce the law as well. You don't have to be seen as outside agitators in the community in order to be effective as far as law enforcement is concerned. So we want to work with the community, not against the community.
Chief East, how have these incidents affected perception of your department?
Well, I think we've had several community meetings, and I don't know it changed our perception, the way people thought of us, but and when we had these meetings, there were a lot of people that were apprehensive and scared on a national level, which brought it to a local level. But once we met and we spoke and they realized that we're not Chicago, we're not a bigger city that's having some issues, they realized that we are a community-based police department. We are their friends and neighbors and brothers and sisters, and we worked through it, and we talked on some hard subjects, and we moved forward, and everything seems to be going really well there. We're still doing a lot of outreach to make sure we have those bonds with one another.
You both talked about outreach. Chief Vance, you mentioned community policing. What in Jackson, what is community policing exactly?
Community policing is basically an attitude adjustment, especially on the part of law enforcement. Because I've been around long enough to remember when that wasn't the concept. When we went into neighborhoods, we went in, we made arrests, we went in, we wrote tickets, and we left. We were not seen as a part of the community. We were just simply seen as somebody who were just simply law enforcement officers. But when you go to the community-oriented policing concept, you must be seen in the community doing more than enforcement. That's when we go back to speaking about outreach programs. One example for us that I'm very proud of is our PALS program, which is the Police Athletic League. Malcolm McMillan started it when he was police chief, and it has grown into a program where we have a relationship with over 70 school-age kids. In fact, we're going to have a banquet for them tonight. Getting into the community, providing other services, extending the hand of friendship and cooperation between law enforcement and the general public helps to blur that line that's perceived to be out there between law enforcement and the community.
But when push comes to shove, there comes a time when you do have to be an enforcer of the law. Does the community approach make that easier?
Yes, because the community does not let us go as far as our responsibility as far as enforcing the law and protecting the community. But what happens is, if you have a community-oriented based relationship, the public will assist you. The public wants you there. The average citizen, if they're sitting out on their porch, they expect to see the police drive by about once every 45 minutes. It's been proven over and over that the presence of that police officer in that neighborhood will deter crime. Because in the end, Wilson, we all want the same thing. Whether you're a civilian or whether you're a police officer, you want a safe neighborhood that you can grow in and raise your family in safely.
Chief East, how does community policing take effect in Oxford?
Chief Vance hit it right on the head. For us, to a lot of people, this community policing is a new phrase. I was brought up a second-generation law enforcement. Father was a sheriff there, still is. And so I grew up at policing is just part of the community. That's what we did. You know, when I was a kid, we went to every ball game, we went to everything, people were at our houses. So for me, getting in law enforcement 26 years ago, it started out as we policed our community. We went to activities, we were just a part of it. it changed. I saw it change through my career, much like Chief Vance described. We became disconnected to the community, more like writing tickets, roll your windows up, tinted windows, sunglasses on. We changed that when I came in. We stopped all that. We made officers get out of the cars an hour, 2 hours a day, meet their community. It has taken off for us. We started Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts, and we've reached out, and officers are constantly doing things now that we want to be seen just like the garbage collector is, just like the person working at McDonald's. We're no different, other than the fact we have a job to do, and that's protect you. Other than that, we're no different. We don't want to be seen as this enforcer. You know, those are words we don't like. We like peacekeeper better. We're there to keep everybody safe. I saw a tweet come out the other day that the Chiefs Association with JPD was pushing someone out of the road, officers pushing someone out of the road. So that's the stuff that you don't see normally. But that's things that JPD, we do on a normal basis, change tires, help elderly people up. Those are things that we want to engage, and we just show our community that we're doing that. You're always going to know when we have to arrest someone, when there's something bad happens. You know, you're going to take care of that for us, so we want to make sure that everybody sees the other side of us too.
Well, Chief Vance, some of these incidents that I mentioned around the country so often involve a law enforcement officer and who typically is white, and the person who is shot is African American. Mm-hmm. How much does race come into these issues, and how much does race affect the way your officers approach any given situation?
Well, I think if we're going to be honest here, we have to accept the fact that race has been an issue throughout the history of this country. I mean, it's a negative part of the American society. But it doesn't take away from the fact that this is still the greatest country in the world. But it's an issue that we have to deal with. But what needs to happen as far as these things are concerned, as we spoke about earlier, there are literally thousands of police jurisdictions in this country that operate independent of each other. So in order to make some progress, you have to look inside the culture of each individual police department. If there's a culture of abuse, then these type things are going to continue to manifest themselves. The problem I have with it is you can't hold one of Chief East's police officers responsible for something that may happen in Jackson, because we don't necessarily operate the same way. Not saying his way is better, not saying my way is better. I'm just saying they're different because they're different jurisdictions. So once you've identified that this type culture exists in your individual police department or your city, then steps must be taken in order to eliminate whatever the problem is. If it's poor training, if it's a bad police officer, those situations must be addressed. And that's the only way that we're going to see this situation get better. But you cannot blame a police officer in Oxford for something that happened in Chicago.
What do you look for then in your department, and how do you root out these issues that you just mentioned?
Well, what you do, all of us have extensive background checks. If you applied to be a police officer today, it will probably take 8 or 9 months at least before we're ready to send you to the academy. But nothing is 100% foolproof. So you have to make sure that officers understand what your philosophy is about policing your city. And when they do not abide by your policies or procedures, then you must deal with that particular officer. Now, sometimes that may be something as little as retraining, or it may be a situation where you have to fire that officer. Everybody that you hire is not going to work out, but you have to be observant. You have to be prepared to take action if there's an officer or officers that are displaying behavior that are contrary to what your philosophy is as chief about how you're going to police your city.
Chief East, similar situation in Oxford?
Yes, sir. Right on. As far as how do you control that, then I think it starts with the top. For us, we have our administrative staff. We constantly, every car has a video camera in it. We review that. We look for officers who could be angry, who are not handling situations right, who may be treating people different. Depends on the severity of that, where that officer either disciplined, brought in, retrained, or is sent home, or a lot of times go to counseling. They may have things in their life that are indicators to us, divorce, a lot of things that way, that you have to find that out, and you can't do that if you're not on the street with them. We have 74, can't imagine how Chief does it here, but we're able to view those videos, and we don't always get it right, but we're constantly looking at that, looking at officers, holding our supervisors accountable to make sure that we see these identifiers and we take care of them.
And you have body cameras in Oxford, do you not?
We do have body cameras. They're very old. We have new ones that would be in hopefully by the end of September this month. So everyone in the department will have body cameras that we can view also.
And do you think that is an effective way to help, not just to monitor what your officers are doing, but do you think it has an effect on the officers who wear them in how they approach a given situation?
Yes, sir, I think so. Our officers are asking for them. They're scared. You know, they're scared of false claims. They're scared of how people treat them. So they want them there so they can have a witness, so to speak, of how actions are going. They're very used. In the last, when I started, we didn't have cameras in cars. Now all our officers have cameras in cars. So they're very used to cameras. They understand them. Our square area in downtown Oxford all have cameras. So, you know, we've got cameras pretty much everywhere you go that's on them. So they're used to them and they want those cameras there. They want that witness with them.
In your capacity of president of this state association of police chiefs, do you get a sense from your fellow chiefs, aside from Chief Vance, who have concerns about this, about the publicity surrounding all these recent events nationwide?
Yes, it's very troublesome. When we're at meetings or we're sitting around talking, we're all concerned about that. The Chiefs Association is currently working with some publicity studios to try to put out some PSAs to try to make law enforcement look more in a brighter or more of a friendly area, you know, trying to make us humanized. Mm-hmm. We're looking at ways to present us, because right now media is just presenting the worst of the worst. So we're trying to say, hey, we want to market. We want to say this is not a bad profession. We're not bad people. There are incidents. There are some bad cops here, but they don't represent the majority of us. This is still a great community. This is a great career, and we're trying to publicize that to say, hey, we are the ones that stand between good and evil, and we are good people. We have good men and women defending that for you.
Chief Vance, what do you see as your biggest obstacle toward a sense of trust between the police department and the community it serves?
You know, I'm satisfied with the way that's progressing. You know, you got to get out in the public, and when I'm in the grocery store, when I'm at church, people are going to come up and tell you what's going on with you and your police department. During my career, I've had officers that I've received complaints on, and basically about 1 or 2 sentences into that phone conversation, I pretty much know who they're talking about. Right? So we get a lot of positive feedback from our citizens about how our officers are performing. And it's like Chief Easton and I were talking about. There are going to be some people, some police officers that are not meeting your standards, and you're going to have to deal with them. The public accepts the fact that you're going to have bad officers, like you got bad media people, like you got bad doctors. What they're looking for from the chief is, are you going to tolerate that? Are you going to allow one of your police officers to go out and unnecessarily abuse people? So pretty much what we do, we tell our officers, when you make a traffic stop, you treat that person in the car the same way you would want a police officer to treat your son, to treat your mother, to treat your wife. And if you do that, you're going to be okay.
I would say so let's go into this, the community policing is very, very important, and I would implore every department to try to get to do that. More to get their officers out of cars, demilitarize them, make them join the community, but also I'd ask the community to believe in their officers and have faith in them and open the door for them. Give them an opportunity. Don't shut that door and say that all officers are bad. Give them an opportunity to prove to you. We understand that the burden's on us now, national attention's on law enforcement, and we know that. And we're going to kick the door in, so to speak, and chase after our community. But we would ask that community also open the door to us and give us that opportunity to make it good to them.
Chief Vance, any final thoughts?
Well, we're pursuing, we want to get to the place where when we start having this conversation, we're not talking about the police and the community. We just want to talk about the community. Right. And we want to identify that law enforcement has a role, but it's inside the community. I don't like lines being drawn between police departments and the communities that we seek to serve. In the end, you can call police officers a lot of different things. There are a lot of different definitions. But in the end, all we're servants. We're there to serve the community. And as chiefs like Chief East and I share that philosophy, and that philosophy grows throughout the country, I think most of these problems will pretty much take care of themselves. And anybody who does not have that philosophy, I don't think necessarily needs to be a police chief.
Chief Lee Vance of the Jackson Police Department, Chief Joey East of the Oxford Police Department. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us on that issue.
Thank you.